Hello, thank you for tuning into our YouTube channel. I just want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. These early episodes on YouTube are going to be the early episodes of our podcast. A lot has changed since when it comes to the audio. So it's not going to be of the same quality. Not saying that it's bad, it's just not as good. However, all the content is still the same, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy nonetheless. Thank you. Make sure to like and subscribe, please.
So for those of you that have been following the podcast, you would know that we were set this week to give our debrief on the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Unfortunately, we did have some technical difficulties this week with releasing that episode. We had some recording issues. It happens, but we do apologize for that if you were looking forward to that episode. So instead, we pulled into the backlog and we're going to present to you our debrief of another film, and I'll let you know what that is now.
Hello, mainstreamers and cinephiles and everybody in between. I'm Bryant.
And I'm Caitlyn.
And Operation Silver Screen is a go.
Hello, welcome to Operation Silver Screen. This cinema-related operation has been created to clear our desks from stacks of open cases. What are these cases? Well, even being the film lovers that we are, Caitlyn and I have a huge backlog of must-see films that we still need to experience. So each week we'll tackle a film that either one of us or both of us still need to see. We will then provide a debrief of our week's mission, giving our outlook on the film's popularity and significance, as well as providing our opinion on whether or not it is worth seeing and other fun insight. What was our mission this week?
So Brian and I had to put in some work for this week's objective. We had to put our boxing gloves on, and we trained real long and hard, really had to endure some grueling hours in the ring to tackle this critically acclaimed and controversial film, $1 Million Baby. This film was directed by Clint Eastwood in 2004 and was adapted from a collection of short stories by author F.X. O'Toole called Roteburn's Story from the Corner. The first part of our debrief will be spoiler-free as we talk about our overall thoughts on the film, but as we move into the classified part of the mission, there will be some spoilers on the story, but we'll be sure to give you a warning when we get to that part. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into the ring, Brian. So has there been something that's been holding you back from watching this film? So why is this one that we were tackling, Brian?
So I've been holding off on this movie. It's just been one that I've been procrastinating. It's been in my Netflix queue for ever. It's actually where it just went ahead and disappeared. I had to watch it on HBO Max. And there's never been anything in this movie that really interested me that actually pushed me forward to watch it. The biggest thing that I heard about this movie was Clint Eastwood being the director and it winning a ton of Oscars. However, I never really been a fan of Clint Eastwood's movies, or at least the movie that I watched, which was Gran Torino, which I believe is another Oscar-winning film. And I was not a fan of that film at all. And I didn't grow up with Clint Eastwood or anything like that, so I never really had any attachment to this film. Nothing to make me want to go ahead and say, yeah, I gotta watch this right now. What about you, Caitlyn?
Yeah, so I don't think I've ever even heard of this film, to be honest, until you had brought it up. For me, Clint Eastwood isn't a director that I look after too often. I'm not very familiar with his works. I think I did see part of Gran Torino, but he's not one that I'm going to follow. Hilary Swank, too, she's been in a couple of films that I've seen, but mostly chick flicks. So I've never really followed her more, I guess you would say, prestigious kind of film career. So you brought this movie up when we were talking about things to review. And that was the first time I really ever looked into this one. I didn't hear any of the Oscar buzz for it. So I did see that it was on Netflix recently. So I got a chance to watch it there. You said it was on HBO Max as well?
Yes.
So it does look like it's coming to some streaming services and it's there available. I actually watched this with my boyfriend. He had seen this and he was kind of excited to see how I thought about it. He said that he thought favorably of it for the most part for reasons that we'll get into a little bit later. But so talking about that Oscar buzz, this won 4 Oscars. Can you tell us a little bit about what those are?
Yes, this won 4 Oscars. It won Best Picture, Leading Actress for Hilary Swank, Supporting Actor Morgan Freeman, and Best Director, which went to Clint Eastwood, who was the oldest director to ever win an Oscar. I believe that record is still held up now. He was 74 when he won that award. This also got 3 nominations for Clint Eastwood as lead actor, Best Adaptive Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. This is also number 216 on IMDb's top 250 top rated movies.
Yeah, so that's a lot of awards that it's gotten. So I'm curious to see if we think those are deserved, especially with the performances, because I think one of those I definitely have some gripe with off the bat. But let's before we get into that, let's talk about our overall opinion of the film, and then we'll kind of get into the performance.
So my overall opinion for this film, it's a rather simple story. It's one we've seen a dozen times. It's about a female who proves that she's just as good as any other male, or at least deserves to be treated in the same right. And it's another underdog boxing story. However, this one didn't stand out for me in either of those aspects. It was in the middle for them, and then it had a couple missteps along the way. I think it was still, the structure was solid. I think the performances were great. It had a amazing cast. One where it's like every scene, I'm like, this person's in this movie? That person's in this movie? Is that character actress Margot Martindale?
It was character actress Margot Martindale.
Yes. But even with character actress Margot Martindale in the movie, this honestly should have been titled Oscar Winning Baby. Because this felt like a movie that was designed just to win Oscars. It just had all those Oscar beats in there. And then that was it. There was nothing unique or anything to set it apart. I think also this movie is known to be great because of the shocking third act that it has. I think, when you look at the primacy and recency effect, yeah, this movie starts out strong. It's a story that we've seen and, kind of always resonates with us in some way, whichever part of it that you relate to. And then it does have a pretty shocking development in the film, even though I wasn't totally for that, but it did pick up the movie for me a bit. However, that middle is something that was very, very cookie cutter for me. And I think the things that did happen in the third act could have easily been avoided. So that big shocking development, I think, had some issues as well. And it's something that we'll go ahead and discuss during our spoiler section. But what did you think of the movie?
I somewhat agree with you. I agree that it was very much Oscar bait, and I agree that the first 2/3 of the movie are something that we've seen from a lot of other sports movies, from a lot of other underdog tales. I love sports movies. I don't think you like sports movies quite as much as I do. And I don't like sports. I'm not a big sports fan, but give me a sports movie, give me an underdog tale like that, and I'm going to eat it up. I like Creed, I like Friday Night Lights, I like all that kind of stuff. But I will say that the third act of this film did surprise me. I think it did kind of delve away a bit from, your typical sports triumphant tale and delve into something else with a twist at the end there in the third act. And we'll get into more of that, like I said, in our classified spoiler section. But it did surprise me. And while I agree it was Oscar baity and I have my issues with the third act, it did surprise me. As far as performances go, I think Hilary Swank, killed it. And I was actually reading something about how much she was training and getting ready for this role. And she actually had an injury. She had a toe, I think it was, that got infected. And she had to go on medical leave during getting ready for this film. And to stay in character, she didn't tell Clint Eastwood, she didn't tell anyone on the film why she had to take this medical leave or what was going on with her, because she felt like that was true to the character. But I think she put on a really good performance. I think Morgan Freeman, while he kind of did what Morgan Freeman does, I did enjoy him in the film. For me, I think Clint Eastwood was the weak link, acting-wise, in this film. I wasn't really a big fan of his performance at all. What do you think about the performances, Bryant?
So the performances, you mentioned Morgan Freeman, who I'm always excited to see. Even though he supported one of the other issues I had with this film, which was the narration. It's always, when you talk about stories, is show, don't tell. And this movie not only has narration, but I felt like a lot of times the narration was just telling you something that you're sitting there watching. I think the only reason they had the narration is because they're like, hey, we have Morgan Freeman on set. Let's get some narration. But I think other than that, his performance was really good. I'm not too sure the other people that he went against in the Oscars. He did give an award-winning performance. I do agree Clint Eastwood was probably the weakest link in here. He was that grumpy old man who's conservative, stuck in his ways, who is the opposition for your protagonist. Not exactly the antagonist, but that reluctant teacher that, again, we've seen over and over again. And yes, he had a thing going on with his daughter, but that really wasn't explored too much. I did like his relationship that he had with the priest. That made for a lot of good laughs, I think. And I think they could have explored more with his character and made him more of a compelling character when, you know, he's helping her out and it sort of becomes this father-daughter bond. I think I would have felt it more. Not sure if that's so much his performance or if that goes into the story. And then again, you have your supporting cast all around him. I think everybody's putting on a pretty good performance, even though Anthony Mackie's character went a little overboard at times. I'm not really sure what the point was for that. But the performances, I like the performance. Hilary Swank, forgot to mention her performance was great. I did read about how she got an infected toe, though that would have been an amazing third act if it wasn't what ends up happening to her was actually just the infected toe. And then you continue on with the rest of the movie, how it plays out. I think that would have been interesting.
That would have been interesting.
We can talk about that more in spoilers. Another thing that you mentioned is the sports and sports movies. I like sports movies. However, there's only so many times I can watch them. It's not something I jump on and watch because I'm usually expecting the same thing. And in a sense, I'm usually going to receive the same underdog story, the same pushing yourself to the limit. I do like sports. I'm not a big competitive person. I'm not always looking to play a sport and everything, but I do like some sports. Probably the biggest sport that I like participating in is boxing. Granted, I'm not like an amateur fighter or anything like that, though I think from what I learned in boxing and watching this movie, I did have some problems with the boxing in this film, and that's what made this a lesser boxing film for me compared to other great boxing films such as Rocky, Creed, Fighter. Haven't seen it yet, but I heard great things about Raging Bull.
I think another thing that I really like about sports movies that I didn't get in this one is the suspense. I don't think in her matches themselves we had an element of suspense. You know, she was a one hit and done type of person, so you never really saw the hard fight between her and her toughest opponent. I mean, you kind of do at the end, but throughout most of the film, it was lacking in that regards for me.
No, I agree. That's why I said with the boxing in this, I did not find the boxing to be thrilling. I did not see the suspense there. Like I said, this movie there's not any really drama in this film until that third act development, aside with the thing with her family. But that's just one scene to show that, hey, her family treats her like crap.
Yeah, and I saw some arguments against her family being a little too stereotypical. Her family is definitely, I guess, what you consider white trash type of family. You know, they're low income. We're seeing them as being kind of moochers off her fame. They're ungrateful. They suffer with obesity and stuff like that. It's very much stereotypical white American kind of caricature that they represent. How did you feel about that aspect of the story? Again,
that's a thing. That's another point where this movie is just hitting those highlights, those Oscar highlights. It's just another thing. It doesn't have any complexity to it. It's just another reason for you to go ahead and root for the protagonist. You're like, oh, her family hates her? Hey, well, we gotta like her. She doesn't really know how to box? Well, I'm rooting for her. Yeah, it's just going ahead and providing more opposition for the character, because they do lose that opposition in the middle, so I feel like that's why they brought the family into the film. This movie won for Best Picture and Best Director, and we have a actor turned director, one who's kind of a critic darling, almost, which is sometimes an offensive term, so I don't want to really throw it out there like that. However, after watching this and Gran Torino, I'm starting to think maybe he is just a critic's darling. What did you feel about the direction of this film?
Anytime you get a really good performance out of an actor, there is usually good direction behind it. I definitely feel like whatever he did to get that performance out of Hilary Swank, I think I can applaud him for that. I think visually this film, going a little bit off of, like, as far as the creative direction for this, what did you think of the tone that it had throughout?
I think it was a rather flat tone, but the movie doesn't really have any dramatic peaks in it. And things just get done and they move on. Nothing has an impact, again, until the third act develops, which is a long time to that point. And after that development, it kind of just sits there for a little bit, and then it gets to the point of the moral decision, and that's where it picks up again. But other than that, I thought the tone was rather flat with this movie.
I would disagree with that. I think I was, pretty engaged throughout the film. I feel like, maybe it is just the performances, but I thought it was pretty dynamic throughout. And I think visually that it kept my interest just because of the darkness in the film, the way it played with light, I think made a big impact on the visual language of the film.
I'm glad you brought up the light, but maybe you can explain it to me better. Because for me, when I was watching, I was wondering, why is everyone talking in the shadows? I was like, I know this gym isn't making a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure they can turn the lights on once in a while. And usually when I see that people talking from in the shadows, the symbolism in film is that person has ulterior motives, they have darkness within them, they're some type of shady person. But in this movie, it's just normal people having conversation, but someone's half of their head is within a shadow. So maybe there's something that I was missing there that you'd be able to explain to me better.
I don't know that I can tell you the exact reason. Like you said, a lot of times that the characters were in the dark or scenes were almost completely in the dark, but then you would have one small light source coming through. The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is that a lot of these characters were very much in the dark at the start of the film. They weren't where they wanted to be as far as success goes. They weren't where they wanted to be as far as their personal fulfillment. So I feel like that little tiny bit of light represented something, like a glimmer of hope almost, a glimmer of success and what they could have if they put that work in, if they are determined, if they can face what they need to face. That was all I could think of off the top of my head, but that's kind of what I viewed it as.
I think I would agree with you if it wasn't throughout the whole film. If it wasn't, even when characters started to come into the metaphorical light, they still didn't step into the literal light. They still had that shadow playing on them.
Well, I feel like I noticed it more at the beginning of the film, though. I think it got better as it went on. I do think there was more light as it went on. Especially you're thinking about the lights in the ring. Those were times where it was very much well lit when she was in the ring. So I think that's something.
So the other thing with the direction, not just lighting, but you mentioned the performances as well and bringing out those performances. I agree as well. It does take a director to pull those out of people. I think also the movie, like I said, it was structured well. There weren't really any missteps. The only missteps I found really were with the writing, aside from the lighting. But other than that, it was a solid made movie, but at the same time, it's something that has been done before, and it's something I don't think really took a lot of work. So I don't really see why everybody is, or at least why the critics were praising this so much for direction, other than attached to the film.
I don't think that Clint Eastwood was even supposed to be the original director. I believe it was supposed to be Paul Haggis, who worked as a producer for the film. He directed the film Crash, but I believe that he was originally slated to direct, and then it went to
another controversial movie, Crash.
Yeah.
Controversial in the Oscars, too. And actually, speaking of it being controversial, you stated that this movie is controversial. I missed that. What is this? What was the controversy surrounding this? Or is that in the spoiler section?
Yeah, let's hold off on that until we go to the spoiler section, because a lot of it has to do with the ending of this film, and I don't want to give that away. Like I said, we're saying that the ending is definitely a shift from the rest of the film. It is a twist, so it's not something that I want to spoil for you guys if you do intend to go out and see this film. So before we get into that discussion, let's talk about who we would recommend this film to. Would you recommend it to anyone? I mean, it seems like you have pretty negative opinions on this film.
My opinions are negative in comparison to the perception of this film and its acclaim. I still think it's a solid movie. I would recommend this, we're talking about recommending this either to general audience or cinephiles or anyone in between or all of the above. I would actually recommend this to general audience. And when I'm doing my recommendations, this wouldn't be a boxing movie that I would go ahead and recommend. This is more of like you come to me and say, hey, I watched all the boxing movies, or should I go ahead and watch $1 Million Baby? I'll say, yeah, go ahead and watch it. I think this, even though it meets all those Oscar points and is Oscar bait, there's a lot for the general audience to enjoy. There's a lot of boxing moment. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of action, even though I don't really agree with the boxing in this film is very glorified boxing. A lot of those one hit knockouts, you don't really see the technical point in it. But however, there's great performances in this movie. There is some comedy in this film, but I don't think there's anything to really analyze in this film and pick from this film and be inspired to watch other films alike. I would say for cinephiles, this isn't something that needs to be a must watch.
I disagree a bit. I think that cinephiles can definitely get stuff out of this. I think there were parts of the screenplay that you can take out, some reoccurrings that you can learn from, but mostly I think just from Hilary Swank's acting, from her performance, I think that people can take something from it. I do agree that if you're looking for a sports movie, if you're looking for a boxing, don't watch this. Go watch Creed or something, that's more of a traditional boxing. This isn't it. But I do think there is people who will get something out of this as far as knowledge that you can take away from it. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into our classified section. So like I said, if you haven't seen this film, you don't know what's coming at the end, go pause this podcast, go sit down, watch this film. Like I said, it's on Netflix and HBO Max right now, so you got plenty of opportunity to go and do so. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get into it. So we've been kind of talking around this ending, and I think I'll go ahead and go into the more controversial part of this film. So in this ending, Hilary Swank's character does become injured during her last match, and she becomes a quadriplegic. She becomes disabled, and she doesn't want to go on anymore. She doesn't want to live anymore. She feels like she's done all that she can accomplish, and she begs Clint Eastwood to end her life. And this film got a lot of flack from the disabled community because of what this implied about disabilities, about people who are not able-bodied. And I think rightly so. I did not like the end of this film. I actually really enjoyed this film up until the end for the most part. There were some grievances, but the ending just kind of ruined it for me. Because I agree, what this implied was just not good. It was kind of gross. It didn't sit well with me. What were your thoughts, Bryant, on this part of the story?
So as far as the controversial ending, I do agree it is controversial. It is a tough moral decision. I think also this movie is supposed to be sparking up this motivation and everything throughout the film, and then the character gives up at the end of the film. It's not uplifting at all. Granted, they may have done that to subvert the audience, but it does, the whole third act kind of switches the theme on the film without holding any bit of the theme from the first 2/3 of the movie. If anything, the first 2/3 of the movie just support her request to go ahead and ask for Clint Eastwood to pull the plug on her. It was a provocative choice. It did bring up a lot of thoughts, but yeah, the way that it ended, I mean, I'll give the movie kudos for going in that direction. I think most people would have gone the route of, no, you can do it, you'll be fine, and she goes ahead and learns how to do something else, or she's thinking about ending it and they face her towards the window and a bird flies in and gives her all her hope back. But they went the hard route. But I don't think that it actually taught anything. I don't think it actually gave any themes other than it's a hard choice for a father figure. Basically saying a father has to make hard choices whether he wants to or not. But at the same time, I was hoping that somewhere in that third act, it would also go back to him and his daughter and kind of wrap up that story, or at least influence his decision making for Hilary Swank's character, which it didn't. I agree with you. It was kind of a letdown, but I think more so not because of the choice itself, but just everything around it.
And I felt like the idea that he was her father figure wasn't entirely earned either. I think he was a mentor to her, and I think that they were special to each other. But I think towards the end, when she's in the hospital, like something switched and he was just like full on dad mode. And it just didn't entirely feel earned to me.
I agree with you on that. Definitely. I think when she gets hurt, his father levels go all the way up. And again, I think if they were to explore him and his daughter, whether it's biological or not, if they were to explore that relationship more, it could make us understand that relationship between them. The father-daughter relationship, again, they had 2/3 of the movie to establish this, because it doesn't take long for him to go ahead and say, yes, I'll train you. And it's funny because I finished a show recently, Arcane, and there's 2 characters in there who kind of have this father-daughter relationship, and they spend fewer scenes together than Hilary Swank and Clint Eastwood, and say only a quarter of what they say to each other. And this movie, it wasn't until the end, and it wasn't until that accident that they went ahead and fully pushed it, which I would understand why he would go to the next level, but it didn't seem that he was really on that platform to begin with.
Yeah, I do agree that Arcane did kind of portray that father-daughter relationship pretty quickly in an animated setting too. I don't know why it was such a struggle with this film to make it believable, but I think part of it is just Clint Eastwood's performance. Like I said, he was a weak link for me as far as performances go in this film. So I think a lot of it does lie in his acting. But going back to the choice at the end, I think a reason why this was really upsetting to a lot of people was a lot of people can live very fulfilling lives even if they are not able-bodied. And the message that you can't is definitely a controversial one. And so I understand why people were upset about this film. And I think that the film throughout the whole thing kind of treated Hilary Swank as if she was at a disadvantage because of her family, because of her gender, because of her age. So for her to go through all of that disadvantages and find a way past it, and then she goes to this ending and just gives up, it was just grim. It didn't fulfill the feelings that were brought into the first part of the film. I mean, I definitely do think that it subverted the narrative, but it wasn't earned. It just felt, like you said, Oscar bait, like they were just trying to get the tears going, but it wasn't a good story. It didn't make for a good story. It just made for empty emotion.
Yeah, it felt like this was the movie for the Oscars, and when compared to other Oscars, maybe this did go ahead and subvert that. But I mean, we've seen hard choices in movies before, and they felt earned. I would go a step further. I don't think the actual accident was earned. I don't think what brought her up to that point in which she falls on the stool is earned. And they talk about Clint Eastwood being protective during this whole time and not wanting to put her in this fight, and then finally putting her in this fight. I didn't agree with that at all. To me, it wasn't just him overcoming his protectiveness. No, it was a dumb choice. I don't even understand how this boxer was allowed to continue fighting the way she did. The champion, the bear, who you might as well have been fighting a literal bear in there, and that may have more sportsmanship than this champion fighter. I don't know if things were different back in 2005 when it came to boxing, but there was just things in there, like she was fighting for years, and this person's over here playing it like it's WWE. Again, maybe things were different in 2005, maybe things are a little bit more ruthless in women's boxing. If so, I gotta go back and pull some clips from 2005. So it didn't even make sense why she was even in that position. I don't know why she wanted to fight this person. I didn't know why she would allow her to fight that individual and get that fight set up. And when she got hurt, it wasn't like he made an honest mistake. It was like, no, you made a mistake that you could have easily avoided. And then also with that stool, there was a lot of scenes, they did a montage of the boxing and they were always putting that stool right side up. And I don't understand why they put it that side down and then take their hand off of it. It's not like the stool fell over. They put the stool underneath on its side. So it's like the movie forced that story point to me. I don't think that point was earned at all. I think they kind of just rushed that one.
I definitely didn't notice that with the stool. That's a good observation there, because I didn't notice it at all.
I did also have this movie spoiled for me. This whole stool scene, I saw it parodied back in Scary Movie 3. I think it was, and some other film had parodied it as well. So maybe I was just looking at the stools a lot more. Like I was watching all the stools, just waiting for one of the stools to look kind of shady. And I'm like, that's the shifty stool right there. But the way that it happened didn't make any sense at all. And also with the family in that third act, like, can this family get any worse? Like, you're telling me there wasn't one member who would fight against that? There wasn't one member to be like, hey, maybe this is sort of wrong. It was like, hey, this family's bad. And then when they bring them in, no, they're real bad. And we talked about that before, you and I, with that being a pet peeve of mine, is when you make someone so unlikable by making them do such an unjust act just so you can have this story point or this rise for the protagonist.
Yeah, so I definitely wasn't spoiled going to this. Like I said, I was pretty surprised. I mentioned earlier that I watched this with my boyfriend, and he was curious to see my reaction because he knew what was coming. And I think at one point he was like even wondering like how much was left, because I think he wasn't sure at what point it actually happened because it had been a while since he had seen it. And it did come pretty close to the end. We did see a lot of film before that moment happened. So in a way, it did kind of come on as an afterthought almost, just because it was at the very end, or a surprise, or a gotcha, or, you know, that Oscar bait twist. But I also agree with you as far as the family. And like I said, they were caricatures to an extreme almost. I don't think they irritated me as much as they irritated you, because I did still want to root for Hilary Swank against her family, and I was okay with that. They wanted them to represent everything that Hilary Swank wanted to get away from. And when you dive further into that, you can kind of see some of the problems with that.
What were those problems that you saw?
So earlier in the film, when Clint Eastwood rejected Hilary Swank, I'm sorry, I'm not saying their name. Like, I'm already forgetting what their names were in the film, so I'm just going to refer to them by the actors. Maggie and Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's just Clint Eastwood. I feel like if you put Clint Eastwood in any film, he's going to be Clint Eastwood no matter what.
Agreed.
So when he was rejecting Maggie for the first time, she was kind of like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm just going to go home, sit on my ass, get some fried Oreos, blah, blah, blah. And so you talk a lot about, I think there's a great amount of fat shaming in this movie. And you kind of see that with her family, because her family is kind of just supposed to be, you know, big. She mentions her mama being a big lady, and she wasn't even that big.
No, I was surprised.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like a lot of fat shaming. There's a lot of just, this is what I come from. I come from poverty, and I'm going to get past this. I'm going to get past obesity. Like, these are all, I saw one commentator said that they portray these things as disabilities to her, which I think is kind of messed up if you want to view the film that way. It does make a point of making that a disability. I put that in quotes to her at the beginning. It's kind of problematic when you think about it. I mean, yes, there are things in our life that we want to get away from, family, but they also get us to where we are. While I think she had to overcome her upbringing to a degree, I think the mean-spirit of it and her lack of relation to her family also kind of put me off. Like, if one of them had been a redeemable character, would be feeling the same way.
Have you seen The Fighter?
That's with, I don't think I have, but that's with Christian Bale, right?
Yeah, Christian Bale, Mark Wahlberg. It's a David O. Russell film, which I know you're not too much of a controversial topic.
I might have actually...
He did Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah, I know who David O. Russell is. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his. But I think I might have seen it. I'm not fully remembering.
So Mark Wahlberg's character had 3 awful sisters, a mother who was his boxing manager, but put him in like all these horrible fights. Like, he ends up having to fight someone like two weight levels above him. And Christian Bale is this former boxer. He used to be a big thing, but now he's just a strung out drug addict. And this family kind of reminded me of that. And maybe because you spend more time with the family in The Fighter, I think they did a better job with it. But I think it is because, like you said, they had some redeemable factors, or maybe not even so much redeemable, but you have some more understanding because they still cared for him somewhat in their own twisted way, and it became toxic. But in this, they're just downright villains.
I think I have seen that movie. I'm like 80% sure I've seen that film because it sounds very familiar. And like, as soon as we started talking about it in relation to this film, it did bring up some memories. And didn't Christian Bale lose a lot of weight for that film?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I think he was known as for losing weight for that film, unless there was another one.
There's another one too. The Machinist is his other big one where he lost weight.
No, I think it was The Fighter.
He does that all the time.
Yeah, he loses and gains weight like it's nothing. But yeah, so that was kind of my problems with how the family was represented. I guess we can't. So normally we would go into podcasts talking about why it was significant for its time, but this is still pretty recent film. This isn't something that was made too long ago. But do you think there was any significance to it?
No, I think this was just an Oscar bait movie. I know we said that a couple times. I think the movie came out at the right time. I think that's what it has best going for it. It just came out at the right time. I don't know if the movie will do well nowadays, but I don't think I think it was significant for its time just for that third act, because nobody was expecting that third act, especially if you're marketing the movie towards people who go out and see sports movies, they want to see the next Rocky, then that third act is going to be shocking. And that's what people are going to talk about when they leave that theater. Because it's almost like this movie made the film backwards. They went ahead and filmed the third, or they had the idea of the third, and they're like, how can we get to that point? So I think that's why this movie was so talked about.
And talking about, its time, I think a couple years later is when the show Friday Night Lights came out. And the thing about Friday Night Lights, this is also based on a book, by the way, but they have a similar twist in the first episode for Friday Night Lights. This follows a football team, a high school football team. They're doing great. They got their star quarterback doing great. He's got everything. He's got the popularity. He's got the fame. He's got the pretty girlfriend. He's got the great friends. He's got everything. And then an injury happens in the game and he becomes paralyzed from the waist down. And his career's ruined. And that was their twist at the end of the first episode. But the difference between Friday Night Lights and $1 Billion Baby is that character, instead of getting written off the show, we follow him through his journey as a disabled person and get to see his life and what he's able to do and able to accomplish and how his life changes. And I think that was such a better story. I mean, granted, I have only watched the first season and a half, maybe 2 seasons, maybe. But I think that was in 2006 that came out. So it was only 2 years after $1 Million Baby. So it is interesting to see, 2 very, very different takes from the same kind of story. Like I said, I don't know how much is taken from the book and how much was made for the show. I can't really go into that. But Friday Night Lights, I know, was greatly applauded for being ahead of its time, I guess you can say. I think there's a lot of things that would still hold up in today's world. So just something to ponder and something that if you're interested in, I think that Friday Night Lights is on Hulu if you want to give it a watch. Like I said, I've not completely finished the series, so I can't fully recommend it as a show yet because, like I said, I haven't finished it. But from what I've seen, I've enjoyed it. So that said, what is your overall rating for this film? Letter grade, what would you give this?
I think it's a bit higher than you would think. I would give it a solid C. It's an alright film. It's directed well, it's performed well, it has some good scenes in it. Wasn't bored throughout it. However, there's just nothing that sets us apart from any other film alike.
I'm torn between a C+ or a B- because those first parts I was really engaged. I liked the sports movie aspect of it. I liked Hilary Swank a lot. So there are things that I actually really, really did like in this film. But then the negatives are just so negative. And am I going to remember this film a year from now? I don't really think so. So maybe I'll say C+.
I feel like I need to bring my rating down more now. I do not like it as much as you do. So we're too close in letter grade.
Well, C's a passing grade. I mean, D's a passing grade. I tend to rate things very harshly, too. I don't know about you.
I try to be somewhat positive. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more generous. But I feel like when you go to C-, I think I should have... I don't know, I think actually a C- may be more fitting of a grade for me, because I do have some actual issues with this movie. It is an alright film. However, I still think there's some missteps present within the film. So yeah, I would actually give this a D-. Almost, I'm kind of considering a D+. Even though I know a D+ is passing, is not really. I'll go C-. I'm gonna go C-.
Okay, final answer.
Final answer, C-.
See, I feel like for me, if I really like a movie, it's a B for the most part. Well, no. If I like a movie, it's a B. A, like, I really have to love something to give it an A. Like, so if you have an idea for a movie, something that you don't think me and Brian have seen that you think, might have that opportunity to be something I love, go ahead and drop it on our social media. We're on Twitter, as you know, at OpSilverScreen. We're also on Instagram, same handle. That's OpSilverScreen. And we're also on Facebook under Operation Silver Screen. So once again, I want to thank you all for being patient with us. I apologize that we didn't have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre debrief for you today. And I apologize for the audio issues that we've been having recently. Like I said, we've been having some technical difficulties, but I just want to thank you for your patience, and we will have that episode out to you as soon as we are able. In addition to that, as a reward for your loyalty and for just continuing to support us through these times, we're going to go ahead and give you a little something special. We've prepared a compilation of outtakes for you guys from our various episodes that we've had so far. Just something to prove that we're not as perfect as we may seem. Or, at least Bryant isn't. I think I'm pretty perfect. But we hope you guys can laugh with us, maybe even laugh at us. I don't know. We'll see. But we just hope it'll give you a chance to learn a little bit more about us, maybe see a little bit more of our humor. So we hope you enjoy it. It'll be coming out soon. And we also do have a couple more special episodes coming up. We have something coming up for our best of 2021 films that we've watched. So we're really excited to have these things coming up. So you hope you'll continue to listen and be on the lookout for those. And like I said, please reach out to us on our social media if you have any comments or anything. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.